Hello. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So is screen visible?
Okay. Yeah, audible. Clearly visible.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So let's start. Okay. All right. So so the last that we will discuss about the OS command injection, right? Where we'll discuss that how we can secure the OS command injection. So now today that we are going to discuss about the SQL injection. It's like one of the most important attack and one of the most important security issue in code review, right? So now here that we can understand about the SQL injection. So basically that here we have the two types of the SQL injection while we are reviewing that the code. So we'll discuss that the both like when we will review that the code, then what type of the different things that is come in the SQL injection. So let's start that. So first of all, when we are review the SQL injection, so what is SQL injection? It is simple. SQL injection attack, that means like where that the attack will insert or injection of a SQL query via the input field, right, from the client to the application. And successful SQL query will manipulate that the database, right, will exploit that the database, read the sensitive data from the database, modify the database. Is like that attacker are able to execute the queries like insert, update, and delete, right? So this type of the query that attacker maybe the execute are there when the SQL injection are there in any application. So SQL injection means that the attacker will execute that the SQL queries are there where the input field, right? So again, see that injection related issue. That means attacker will perform onto the input field, and also we can see that like what that the attacker will do that in the database is just like the shutdown the database also DBMS also. So basically that we can see in the SQL injection that the attacker will connect it to database. Like whatever that the attacks and whatever the injection will perform by the attacker, it will directly on do on to that the directly perform on to that the database. Okay. So here that we can see the SQL injection where that the attacker will execute that the SQL commands, and this SQL command will execute that the some of the database related output. Is like we can see it will try to fetching that the data from the database and all. Also we can see that like it will execute some predefined SQL command, right? Mostly like we can see like it will execute the predefined command like that union command, like union is that the command, insert are there, delete are there, or and right. So these all are the things that execute by the attacker in any input parameter. So now the first of all in the SQL injection, like how we can locate the SQL injection vulnerable code, right? As like in a core dynamically we know that how we can do that, like we'll just identify that there's some parameter like id equals to 1, and after that we can just put the single quote and it will give that the error, that means it have the SQL. And the second option is that when we are perform the unauthorized activities, for example like that we are use the payload like this over 1 equal to 1. So by using this payload, what the attacker will do, that attacker will log in onto the application, right, perform the authorizations type of the attack. So now how that we can locate the SQL injection. So we can just locate that the SQL query in the code, right? We can just analyze the complete code, but here in a SQL injection that we can just go with that the vulnerable query where that the query it was used and how it was vulnerable, how that the attacker will modify the actual SQL statement, right? So here in the SQL injection, what that we have, so in the SQL injection basically is in the SQL injection that basically that we can see that we have that the some secure statements are also there. Secure build statement is like about the prepared statement and the parameterized SQL injections that we can use to secure that. So we will discuss that both how that we can secure. But first of all, let's discuss that the vulnerable code for that. And this secure procedure that we can discuss, so it is common in the JSP, ASP, Python and all, because here we are used at the prepared statement for that, right? And individual for PHP also we have that the one code that I will also show you. right? So the first of all, let's see that like a practical approach, like in the for the SQL injection, how it was worked that. And before it, we just need to create a one database. In the database that we will see that in the database, let's first of all let me just open up the database. And here in the database that we can just create the two parameter is for to perform that injection level attack. uh, exam. Okay, so yeah, that first thing is that when we are created the code, so let me just create the HTML code first, where that we have that the username and the password. Okay, so first of all, yeah, we will create the one page. So I will just take that the page from previous code because it is a client side code. So here we will require the okay. So this is that over the client side code, which is for what username and the password, right? Now let's do the backend code for that. And for backend, first of all, that we require the database. So I think that the user is that the user we have the username and the password or not. Yes, it is right. So see that we have the two entries for that. One is for the admin and second is for the test, right? So test is the normal user, admin is the high level user, right? So here right now that we have the just the normal data. So now let's take this database. All right. So now the first of all let's make the connection. Okay. So to make the connection that we are used that connection MySQLi connect, and let's just connect with the server. So localhost root, then the blank password, and then over the name of our database is over the users. All right, and now here, yes, first of all, that once that we can connect. Now after that, if that is submit, so this is all the common code. Like once that the post was submitted by the user. So once that the submitted by the user, now here that we have that the two parameter. One is for the email. In the email, what we have like whatever that here in input is the email. Okay, and the second field is for the password. And in a password, so we have the password. All right, now let's execute over the SQL query. Select star from user is over the name of the table, where email is over the dollar email, and the password and the password is over the dollar password, right? So there is like the entry that is given by the user, and then it will check with the query like this type of the entry are exists on the database or not. So let's execute the query. Once that we can execute it, now here run. If it is more than 0, like for example, if it is try to log in the test, at least we have the one entry of the test, right? It is less than 0, so it will give that the access of the login. That means we are successfully logged in. So from the row, we can just fetch all the data. All right, so fetch in the associative form, and then here we'll just verify with the email, right? What is the email for the user it is, and once it was verified, all are the correct, like the username and the password is the correct. So the location is that welcome dot php, and as we are extract the email from the database, right? So why we do that? Because we want to print the email. Once the user will log in, then it will print that the email. So here it was print, right? Now, right? So if it is the username and the password is the correct, then it will log in, right? So this two is that it is for the fetch the data, which data we want, email, and we want to print the email onto the welcome.php page. In a URL, it will print that email, right? Otherwise, that we onto the welcome.php, the developer will not redirect the data for the particular user. So that's why most of the case that we can see the SQL injection are happening from the URL also. Like this is how that the URL was generated from the database. And if it is not, that means the something have password or the username is not matched with the database, and if it is not matched, that means the password or email is incorrect. Okay, on to the welcome page, that we will print that the message echo welcome dollar get over email. All right. So now on to the welcome page, as we can see that we can take from the get, and the get is generated from the URL always. Remember that, right? So we have the two requests. One is the get and the post. So post is generally doing on to the form, and the get is generally is doing on to the URLs. Now let's execute this normal code first of all. Like just see that it was work or not. Unexpected on the line number 55. What will happen? Yes, extra code. Sorry. Fatal error onto the line number 37. I think it was not load the content from the bootstrap, right? But yes, let me just log in that. The main purpose is that we want to log in. So the username is the test, password is also the test. Hit the enter. Got the error in the line number 43. What was happened? Let me just check that the query what actually problem are. Select stuff from user. where email is equals to dollar email, which was good, and the password is also that the password it is also good. So unknown column email, it says that the all right username. So here that we have a username. So welcome, but it was not print that the email, and why it was not print, because now yes. So see, now it was login from the test user, right? It was correct. So what does that we can do that, like whenever the user will come on here, it will just give that the username password and it was login. And here we can also see that it will just print that the SQL means it was just give that the URL path are also there, right? But right now here, what we can do that right now here that you can perform that the authorized SQL injection, right? That means here what the attacker will do, that attacker will use that the one of the malicious payload to log in from to the first entry of the database, right? So now for that what we can do, first of all, that I will just perform the attack and then I will explain you how it was done. Okay, so we just need to create the payload first, right? So yes, so let's see that this is over the query, right? Let's suppose that this is over the query, right? This is over the vulnerable query, we can say that. So now it will select the all the entries from the user where the username equals to dollar email and password is the dollar password. So what happening are there when that the user will provide that the any input in the email. So it was stored here. When it was given the password, so password is stored here, right? In between the double quotes. Now here when that the attacker will come, so see that in SQL that we have the fixed code is known as 1 equals to 1. 1 equals to 1, which is always return true statement. So see that now select star from user where username equals to email and password equals to this one. So that means what? According to this query, we need to provide the username and password. We don't have the choice. If both are there, then it was login. If any of the command is the miss, for example, if we are not give the password, right? So one operation that we are not performed that. So when we are submitting that, it was said that password or email is incorrect. So according to this query, we need to perform the both operation, user also and password also, right? We don't have the any choice are there. But yes, instead of this, if we have the or, so or means that you have the choice, either this one or this one, like user or password. If any of one is that the true, then it was give that the then it was execute the true statement, right? So now remember that whenever we execute the queries and any code are there, so here programming languages work with the interpreter, right? And interpreter will always deal with the true and the false statement. It does not know that like yes it is an email, yes it is a password, and no. If the email was matched, that means the condition is a true. If it is not matched, that means the condition is the false, right? So username and the password will always match with the true condition. If that the conditions was matched, then it was login. Otherwise, it is not. So according to this query, if we have provided the email, right, and after that, this is that the code will check that email and password is matching with the database or not. But if we are just discuss about this only the query, so according to this query, if you have provided the username, that is correct. If you have provided the password, that is correct. That means the both are the true. And once it was true, then here you can see that it will matching that the logic, and according to the logic, if it is both matched, then it was login. Otherwise, it is not. So now, according to this query, that we are only dealing with the true and the false, right? Now in the SQL code, we have the one fixed code are there. It is 1 equal to 1. 1 equal to 1 will always return the true value. Remember that. 1 equal to 1 is always return a true in SQL, right? If we are just see that what is 1 equals to 1 in SQL. So 1 equal to 1, it is a condition essentially meaning that where true, right? So when we use this clause, that means 1 equal to 1, which is always true, right? It is not depend on to the any logic and any of the thing when we are used at the 1 or 1. So in other words, it will return all the records from the table without any filtering, right? So that's why here that we can use 1 equal to 1 now. Now we want to use 1 equal to 1 in the email and 1 equal to 1 in a password. Because for login we need to use username also true and password is also true. Then it was login, right? So now here in the replace of the dollar email, what we need to do that we need to execute the 1 equal to 1 in the username and 1 equal to 1 in a password. So now how we can do that? So in that case here we just create a one payload, and this payload will replace in between the double quotes using this parameter. Okay, using this parameter. So for example, if I will give the test are there, so that means what, the test will stored in between the double quotes like this. Okay, so now what we can do that we just want to execute that the 1 equal to 1 in over the double in single quotes. So how we can do that? Directly we can't come on to the 1 equal to 1, right? If it is come, so basically see that in single quote whatever data it will come, it is a normal data. Now if I will give the 1 equal to 1, that means what, username is over the 1 equal to 1. It is not a SQL code. SQL code will execute after the single quote here. Now here how we can do that? So here we need to execute that like username is blank or 1 equal to 1. Now as we know that what actually the or statement will do that, it will executing like that. Now we know that now we want to execute the statement like this, 1 equals to 1, right, in the single quotes, but with the or. Why? Because see that and will say that like when both operation are the true, then it was execute, otherwise it is not. In or what we have, if any of the statement is that they're true, then it was said that like this was is correct. So according to this, you can see first statement of the username is false because we are give the blank statement. So according to the blank, that means it is not fine in a database and it was false. But after that in a username we will use the or parameter or condition or operator that I will use. So or means what, it will check this one or this one, and if any of them it is a true, then according to this the username is a true. So see that this one is false but this one is the true. So according to this what happened, that username is the true. Same thing that we can implement onto the password. So password is also the true. When both are the true, then it was login. But how we can execute that, how we can balancing that, how we can make that the balance onto this query. So for that what we need to do that, first of all we just need to close the single quote. Then we can just execute the or in single quote. Here we can execute the one, and in second single quote that we can execute one. Now let's see that the query is balancing or not. So just copy that, and here we have that the double quote. So let me just paste that. So see that now this one was balanced is what complete, but at last we have the one extra single quote. So in that case it was give that the error. So we can just remove that the last single quote from here. So when we remove that the last single quote, so in that case what happened, that query is balanced. Now see that, see, query is balanced. Username is the one blank, that means is a false, or 1 equal to 1 is true. So according to this one username is true. Same thing that we can implement in the password. So according to this, username and password both are the true. And remember that this is the SQL code, so it is only work with the SQL query. If you are execute anywhere are there, then it was not execute because it is the SQL code. So it was only work with the SQL injection, right? Sorry, SQL query only, right? So now here we are execute from the select star from user. That means it is a SQL query. So that we are executing it, and or is the logical operator just like the and. So now let's execute this statement in all the code here, and let's see that it was work or not. Means like it will say that like the username is a true or not. So according to this one username is true, according to this one password is also the true, and when we are logging that, so see that it was login the first entry of the database, right? And if you are logging from that, then let's just try to change that to equal to 2. Then what happened that it was login or not. Again, it was welcome admin. So mean that when we are give that the same number, right? Both times we will give the same number. It is a SQL code, right? We are not creating any specific payload for that. We are just balancing the query. Otherwise, the code that we are executed 1 equal to 1, generally that we are use the 1 equal to 1. So the 1 equal to 1, the code is that for what? It is always return the true value, right? So it is the SQL facility that we are just balancing the query. And sometime what happened that the queries are having the lot of single quotes are there. Sometime like it was a developer, it is used in an encoded way sometime like procedure based query, right? So it will just take that the data from any other way. So in that case, sometime that you just balance the balancing that the query are there is more too difficult. But yes, the payload are the same or 1 equal to 1. And if the query like this, right? If the query like this, select star from user, what you just check that when you are reviewing that the code for SQL injection, so you will just check that the code like query and data both are the goes in a same line or not. So see that our data will store in a dollar email. Like if I will give any email are there, so it was stored in a dollar email, right? So dollar email, let's suppose that if we have provided the admin or test is or the username, so it was stored in a dollar email. And if I will give the password is also the test, so it was also stored in a dollar password. So that means what? Email and password having some type of the data, right? So if the data and query both are traveling in that the single line, that means it is 100% it is a SQL query is a vulnerable, right? Any of the payload will absolutely work out there because see that this email that is provided by the user from here, right? And the query are also going in the same way. So that means what? This code is 100%. This type of the code is 100%. It is vulnerable to the SQL injection, right? So yes, this is the basic concept of the SQL injection. How actually the code was vulnerable. Now let's come on to the secured part. How that we can secure that the query now. Now for the secure that the code, what actually that we need to do that here for securing that the code, what we will do that we will use the prepared statement, right? So prepared statement is that the feature we can say that it is common in all what we can see in all language, right? So prepared statement is a feature that is used to execute the same or similar SQL statement repeatedly with high efficiency. And how? Basically, when we are use a prepared statement, so in that case, we'll executing the same query within the 3 steps. Right now, what happened? Let's see that create the query, goes the data within the query, and execute within the query. So in the same statement that we can just verify the data also, we will execution part is obviously it is a different, yes, but the data and the query both are executed in a same line, same code. We can say that. So see that the select query and data both are goes in a same line. But with the prepared, what we can do that we can first prepare the query without give any parameters, without give any data in the parameter username and the password, and then we can bind only the parameter from the query, not complete query, only bind this email and the password, then we can execute it. So in that case, what happened? As we are know that this payload is only work within the query. Like when we are give this 1 equal to 1, that means before it was it having any query are there like select, insert, update, delete, and this type of the queries are there. If it is not, then in that case 1 equal to 1 is a normal input. In that case, it was not work. So 1 equals to 1 is only work with the SQL statement. Remember that. So for that, what we can do? Now we can execute the SQL statement are in a different line. Then we can bind the parameter. Then we can execute it. So this is what the secure code that we can create. And this is what we know that it is a prepared statement. We know that, right? So let's copy the same code again. And for that now what we can do here, I will just write the secure code now. All right, so now let me just remove this complete code. Okay, basically the some part is at the same, so I will just okay. So the first of all that we can just check that the connection which is same, submit at the post it is also the same, right? And then now I will not tag that the data from here. I will just remove the code from here. All right. Now once that the post is submitted, so the first of all that we can just execute the query, or you can also let me just check that the parameter first. We don't want to create a confusion. So now first of all I will just remove this whole part, this all the code. All right. So now here what we can do. So the first of all that we can execute that the query pre-statement and execute that the query. So for that, first of all, that we can just check that the connection which we are on to the con variable, and here we will just prepare the statement. This is the object-oriented code, right? So that's why it is same in all the languages. Syntax obviously it was changed. Select star from users where email equals to question mark. See that here we will not give any email. Now what the email it is, query will don't know, right? And password also we don't know, means query don't know, right? So from here we will not provide any email and any password, right? I think that we have that the username. So here from here we don't know that the username and the password, right? According to this query. So this query is not know that what the username it is and what the password it is, right? That will give the question mark are there. And remember that one equal to one, or is the logical keyword. So or one equal to one is always work only within the query, right? Then what we can do now, the next statement from the statement will bind that the parameter. Here we are only bind that the parameter now, right? How many parameter that we have in the query? Two parameter. One is username, second is password. And both that I will give in a string format, right? So in the first parameter, we will give that the email. In second parameter, we will give that the password. Okay, also you can directly post here, right? Without any variable. Let me just comment this, and we can also directly post here. For example, like if we are post the email, so we will post the email here, and the second parameter is for what? Is or the password, right? Now see that first of all what we can do, that select stuff from user where username variable don't know what the username it is, and password also, right? Then after that we are just bind only the parameter from the query, not complete query. If you are bind complete query, in that case the same thing are to happen again, right? Or payload that we are able to execute, one equal to one that we are able to execute, right? Like the attacker, sorry. So now what we are do that from the query we are only bind the parameter only. How many parameter that we have? Two. And both parameter that I will give as a string only, right? So that means what? When we are given a string, that means now from here data will goes only in a double quotes. And if it is goes in a double quotes, so in that case, now our parameter that I will use that will use that. So now our parameter will work like this, or like if we are given a single quote, balancing are there, 1 equal to 1. But as we are given the parameter are in a string, so it will goes in a double quote. So when the things are goes in a double quotes, so it is count as a string. And when it was counted as a string, that means now it will find from the database, because database is also storing the only the string value, right? If you have the any password like password at that 123 and all, So it was stored a string value. So now, according to this, now it is understand that or 1 equal to 1, it is actually string it is. So it will take this format is a string, not execute that the code now. It will just take this as a string, and now it was matched with a database. Is there any data like this or single quotes 1, single quotes equal to single quotes 1? If it is, then we are able to log in, right? If it is not, then it was said that username and password is the incorrect, right? So that is how the prepared statement was worked. Now the next statement is what? Let execute that the query last, and now execute that the query now, and now we will fetch all the result. This is all the normal code now, right? Secure code only this three line, 41, 42, and 42, 43, and 44. These all are the three secure line that we have. After that, the things are the same, that we can execute the result, get that the result, and if dollar result result, and same thing are there, like so fetch the result and redirecting toward the header, email, and then the row username, and otherwise any message username and the password. All right. Now, so this is that the secure code, right? How we can do that? This three line that we will use, right? That we can use that the prepared statement, like that the selected the queries and all. Then we'll bind the parameter. Then we are executing that, and then we get the result. And this is how actually it was work, right? Now, after that, let's execute that. This is all the secure code for the SQL. Okay, so now, so secure.php. So the first of all, let's log in onto the normal one, test, like it was work normally. Now, in case if you are give any payload, where it was, this is all the payload, right? Any of the payload, if you give any of the payload, basically it was not work, and why it was not work? Because now it was counted as a normal string. Okay, so when we can log in, so it will just give that the message. And why it was? Because now according to this query, the username and password, like when you are give the or 1 equal to 1, so it was actually stored here, right, in a string format. It was not goes within the query. So that's why it was not understand that what 1 equal to 1 it is, because 1 equal to 1 is the SQL code, right? So it was only work with the SQL query. So this is how that we can secure the SQL statement. It is a prepared statement, and the same thing that we will use in the JSP code also. Same thing. Only the thing is changed is to declaring the variable in a different way in the Java that we are discussed that, right? So yes, this is how that we can secure that the SQL injection, right? And see that from here we have a lot of vulnerabilities that we can secure. One is like the authentication based issue are also secured here. SQL injection, obviously it was secured, and whatever the actions that you can perform with that the query, So these all are the secured are there, right? Like the session hijacking are there. Basically, that it is not part of this one, but yes, when we are trying to do something with that the query like attacker, so it was not done with that, right? So this is how that we can secure that the code. So yes, that's it for that the day that we can discuss all about the SQL injection, how that we can secure that. In the next class, that we can continue with the SQL injection, but parameterized query. In the parameterized query, that we can see that in the URL, how we can secure that the code, how we can secure the request from the URL. Basically, the thing are the same. The little bit things are the change because we are take the requesting from the URL. So how we can do that? So that thing that we can discuss in the next class. So that's it for today. Now, if you have any question, any doubt related to this one or any other else, then can ask me.
Bro, fine, fine.
All right. Okay. So I will share that the code and the notes. So just go with that. Okay. Okay. Bye bye.